Hi everyone, I'm Melissa Hall. I'm the propagation manager at Echo, and we are looking at different pieces of budwood today from different fruit tree species. And budwood is the top portion of a graft. It's also called the scion. And grafting is beneficial because we can take the genetics from an already established mature fruiting tree of a variety that we like, and we can put it onto genetics of a rootstock variety that we prefer or like. So it might be more well adapted to our soils, or might have disease resistance, or might be dwarfing, and our budwood or scion might come from a tree that has really delicious fruit or other characteristics we might like. So now I've found a mango branch that I think we have a good piece of budwood on, and so we saw a couple of buds. One was too swollen and one was not growing and was almost dormant. And this, on the other hand, is a bud that is swollen, but it has not opened yet. And so I would use this piece to graft with. I also am looking at the diameter of the branch and notice that it's pretty skinny, and that's what I want. I have pretty skinny rootstock, so I would use this piece to graft. So when we're going to cut our piece of budwood, we want to first start by sterilizing our cutting materials so we don't transmit anything from previous cuts. So I am going to cut a piece that's about 6 inches long, and I'll probably trim this down when I actually go to graft it, but better to cut long than to cut short. And I am going to cut off all but the top 3 leaves, and then I am going to cut those leaves in half, and this is so when we go to graft, it reduces the transpiration from the leaves. So we store our budwood until we go to graft in a plastic bag, and this helps to keep the moisture in the piece of budwood. And we also label it with the variety name of the mango or whatever variety you're grafting, and that's just to keep each variety separate. So now we're looking at a jackfruit tree, and jackfruit is a little bit different, or every tree is really a little bit different, but we're still looking at terminal buds. But there's a couple of other things we want to think about when we're looking at jackfruit. One of them is that all of the leaves that are closest to the terminal bud are hardened off. So if we have young leaves, young green tender leaves right next to the bud, it is that super tender leaf is actually going to just draw away moisture and energy from the piece of budwood. You can try cutting it off, but usually this is a better way to do it if all of the leaves have hardened off. We also want to make sure this bud is swollen, but it's still dark green. It hasn't turned light green. Once it turns light green and it's starting to open, it's already become a leaf. And so this one is pretty swollen there at the base, and jackfruit, different varieties have different size buds, so no matter the tree, actually no matter the species, it's good to walk around the tree and just see what different buds look like at different stages. And this particular variety has pretty large buds, so I would say this is maybe even on the smaller side of a good bud, but I would still take this as a piece of budwood. So now we're going to cut our piece of jackfruit budwood, and I'm going to start again by sanitizing my clippers, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut probably a 6-inch piece again and cut off all but the top 3 leaves, and then cut these leaves in half. Another thing you want to consider when you're getting budwood is the curvature of your piece. So when you're going to graft, you're usually trying to graft to a flat stem, and so if you have a really curved piece, you're gonna have a hard time unless it's somewhat pliable like this jackfruit, but oftentimes it's less pliable. So just something else to consider. So we're looking at Cambola budwood or starfruit, and these buds are a little bit tricky and they're also very unique. They're really small buds, and I was taught that they should look like rolled oats, and they're very small rolled oats. So if we're looking at each of these buds, and this is a bud that I would say is a good size, and it's swollen. It's not when they are not swollen, they're like little tiny pinpricks, and you can barely see them. I mean, you can still barely see this one, but there's actually usually multiple good buds on each of these nodes, and so this one underneath is also, it's a smaller, but it's still decent, but I would count on this bud. So you can either bud carambola or you could get a piece of budwood and graft the whole thing as well. You can see this is a bud that's already pushed. Obviously it's got a whole new branch, but this is kind of what the growth looks like after it's already pushed. So just be aware of that as well.